Welcome to the Dropping into Power podcast, where we'll be hearing stories about the transformational power of surfing from women surfers of all ages, all levels, and all over. We'll hear about courage, commitment, struggles, frustration, epiphany, and, of course, life transformations large and small. I'm your host, Sheila Gallion, and I am stoked to share these conversations with these amazing women full of so much passion with all of you. Aloha and welcome to the Dropping into Power podcast. I'm super excited to be interviewing Junko Yamasaki today. I first met Junko on the Women Who Surf Facebook group when I first put a post about starting this podcast, and she was one of the first women that responded. And it's taken me such a long time to come back around because guests just evolved and evolved. But Junko, you always stood out to me, just something in your smile and your energy. And so Junko's story is pretty unique. She was born and raised in Japan, then traveled to Australia on a working holiday visa. And over 30 years later, Junko is still in Australia, living with her husband and her two cats. During her life, she's worn a number of hats: daughter, sister, wife, partner, stepmother, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, auntie, friend, migrant, patient, social worker, therapist, and meditation teacher. I'd also add that Junko has a transformational life coaching practice where she does NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy. She's just all in. You have a great byline, carrying the torch for healing, I think is what you said, which I really love.
Yeah.
Junko loves cooking and teaching young people with disabilities her passion for cooking. And she's also very keen to improve her surfing skills. So welcome, Junko. I'm so happy to be talking to you.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. I'm very excited to be here.
So let me ask you first, before we dig into your story, how long have you been surfing and how old were you when you started?
Well, I'm 52 now, and I started surfing about 2.5 years ago. So I was like 49 and a half.
Okay, I love it. And we'll get into, you have a unique aspect of how you learn to surf, but we'll get into that first. When we chatted initially, I was so interested in your story because you came from Japan 30 years ago as a young girl. And what you said to me about it is when you got here, you felt like a bird who'd been released from her cage. So I wanted to ask you more about that. What was it like growing up as a young woman in Japan during that time?
Well, I'm going to take you back to the 80s.
Okay.
And yes, at the time, my parents used to tell me that, girls don't really need higher education. That's a very old way of thinking in rural Japan. And they just wanted me to finish high school, go to work for a few years and get married and have children. That's okay. That's a lot of people do that. For me at the time, I just felt that it was really limited. I didn't have very much choices in my life. I wanted something more than that.
Did you have anyone inspiring you to think that way, or did that just come out of your own nature?
I think, my parents gave me the biography of famous people, like scientists and doctors and so on. And reading that from very young age, those people had to break out of square. Someone like Einstein and Helen Keller, Marie Curie, all different people. And well, I have never been in the science side, but I wanted something more than just ordinary. I wanted to see something outside of box.
And so did you have any other friends your age that thought that way, or were you really on your own?
In a way, I was on my own. A lot of my friends, they wanted to follow the traditional way of, as I mentioned earlier, go to work for a few years, get married and have children. That's women's happiness should lie on. That's how I was taught.
And this was in the 80s in Japan. So this is just, for perspective for people, in the United States. And I mean, I look back and watch 80s shows now, and it's so embarrassing how women are treated. But at the same time, women were being encouraged to get higher education and, different, not the same in many parts of our country. There's certainly parts that are more traditional in that sense. But I just think that's phenomenal that you had that within you. Did you even know professional women? Were there doctors, lawyers, business women in your realm at all?
Well, school teachers, some doctors, but no, I didn't know them personally.
Right.
I see them when I go to hospital, or even I had a female dentist.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't really know professional women personally.
Yeah.
It would have been great, though, if I have known them and spoken with them.
But, it's also interesting, I guess I must have been seeing it more from media, because I didn't either in the 80s. I had never been to a female doctor or a female dentist. And most of the people in my community, the men were the providers, and I only knew one other mom besides my own that even worked. So even though it seems, especially in the US, like that had already been broken, and there were certainly lots of women with ambition. There were a lot of women with ambition at that time, but there were really not a lot of people already in place. So I can see how Japanese society at that time, how it would have been, how did your parents take it? How did your parents take you? And I want to get to what actually drew you to Australia, but how did they take your spirit?
Well, it was hard one for them. They wanted me to be a traditional girl and become a traditional woman, but it didn't work that way.
So what inspired you to go to Australia?
At the time, well, shouldn't say only, but I had three choices: going to Canada, New Zealand, and Australia for working holiday visa. I never liked cold weather, so Canada was out straight away. Between New Zealand and Australia, New Zealand is a small country like Japan, so Australia was left.
And what was the working visa for? What kind of work were you doing?
I worked in a kitchen shop.
Okay.
As a sales assistant. The requirement of visa was that I can study for 10 weeks and work 3 months at the time. Then its purpose of the visa was for young people to experience living in overseas for 12 months.
I see.
Study and work for short time.
And when you arrived in Australia, you didn't speak any English, right?
Not very much at all. My English teachers were all Americans. When I landed in Sydney airport, my goodness, I got the shock of my life. I just couldn't understand anyone.
And now it's very interesting listening to your accent, which is Australian, with a hint of Japanese. So very unique to you. Is there a big population of Japanese immigrants in Australia?
Not big, but it is growing. Yes, the number is larger than it used to be. Even in the area I live in now, when I first came to Australia 30 years ago, there were hardly any Japanese. Now we have quite a few Japanese living in the area and also in Australia too. So if it is compared, the number is compared with other migrants, such as migrants from China, India, England, Canada. It's a smaller population, but yes, Japanese numbers are growing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And what was when you first arrived here, you're a young woman, you're 20 when you get here?
Yeah, 20 years old, yes.
So what were the things that made you feel in particular so free?
Probably it was a good thing I didn't quite understand the language. I didn't feel any expectations on me. That's something I grew up with. That's how I should be, how I need to be, who I should be. I just didn't feel that I can do whatever I wanted to do. I can wear what I wanted to wear. To me, there was so much opportunities here. I can be who I wanted to be.
Did you start? What was the first new outfit that you bought?
I don't quite remember. However, I still remember the bright pink bikini in the summer.
Oh, I love it.
I clearly remember that one because I thought, oh, yes, everyone's wearing that. I want that too.
Oh, that's so cute. Now, was there a difference in how women dressed, especially at the beach? I think you told me you didn't spend a lot of time at the beach, but at that time, did women wear bikinis? I'm not implying they wore huge, all body wear, but was it more modest in Japan than in Australia?
Well, absolutely at the time. Oh, yes. I didn't spend a lot of time on the beach, but I don't remember seeing a lot of people wearing bikinis.
Mm-hmm.
And also just the general wear, the general outfits. A lot of Australian girls, they wore such a short skirt. On the top, it's really, you can almost see the breast. That's something, you don't really, at the time, you didn't really see that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And
Yeah.
do you remember ever seeing any surfers in Japan at that time? Did you have any awareness?
No, not at all. It's when I think back, I think it was only existed in American movies, not in real life.
And so it clearly took a while for you to get to the surfing in Australia. So, we'll get to that.
Absolutely.
I do want to ask you because, I mentioned that you moved in, you came with almost no English. Well, the unique thing about you learning how to surf is you started surfing and you didn't know how to swim. So I see this amazing, and we'll get back to that, but I see this amazing spirit in you, just this willingness to, and I'm sure you did it responsibly in some way, but this willingness to put yourself in the most extreme situations. And I know you mentioned the books, but where do you think that comes from in you, having this courage?
Probably out of curiosity what it is like.
Mm.
And well, coming to Australia, definitely that there was an adventure spirit in me. And
Yeah.
surfing, it was a reluctant adventure, that's I would say, because I I have an experience of almost drowned. So I didn't want to go anywhere. I couldn't stand up in the water.
Yeah.
So it was a very slow process. But once I started, yes, I hooked in. And then I started swimming lesson as well. It's almost 12 months now. It is really great.
And so how did you actually start surfing?
A friend of mine back then, she asked me if he wanted to do surfing with her. And my answer was no. She was persistent. I said no so many times. But I thought about it. It was really very strange. My husband was given this big picture of waves. It's a tube and surfing in the tube. And when I saw that picture, I thought, wow, what an experience. And I always thought I would never experience that in my lifetime, but I wish I could. And, really be careful what you wish for. This came later.
So, okay. So let's go to your first day going out. Did you go out with teachers? Did your friend take you out? How did this actually happen?
I went out with my husband. He's
Okay.
a lifelong surfer, and he took me out to a deeper part of the ocean so that I wouldn't be bashed by waves. However, to me, this fear came back. I said to him, no, we're going back to the shore. We can't stay here. It's just too scary. No, going back. That was our first outing.
And so what did you feel? Did you wear a life vest or something if you weren't comfortable swimming? You had him.
No, I was outing him. He said it's okay, but I normally trust him, but in that instance, I didn't trust anyone. And I didn't have a life vest. No.
Yeah.
I was just so scared.
And so what got you to go out again?
Well, after that, we started with a place where it was shallow.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't go anywhere too deep anymore for a while.
And what about your friend who had wanted you to surf? Did she get involved?
We did go for surf together a couple of times. She did have a lesson, and I wanted to have a lesson, but class was already full, so I couldn't go.
So you went out with your husband, and then how long was it? Well, because the part that I want to get to is, okay, do you want to surf? No. Do you want to surf? No. Then suddenly you're out there with your husband. So tell me a little bit more about that. What happened in that process that went from no, and then you have the wave and the tube and the fantasy. What was that click in you that was like, okay?
I don't know. I just thought, oh, well, I said no so many times, but I just thought, well, I suppose I can give it a go and say no later. That I think that was my thought, really.
And then so you go out and you're scared, but then you're, I think, a pretty determined person is my guess. It sounds like once you kind of have a taste of something and you're seeing that tube in the back of your mind. So you go out again. And then what is it like for you as you start to learn? How are you feeling in the process of learning? Because sometimes it's very frustrating.
Yes.
Did you feel, walk me through what that felt like, those early months.
Well, so we went to shallow part of the ocean and started catching white waves, just like a bodyboarding on the surfboard. And then in the beginning, I just thought, I'm not quite sure. However, as I was able to start catching white water better, this is pretty good. This is fun. At the time, I wasn't standing up or anything. I just thought, this may be okay. Then just started just a little by little going to a little bit more deeper place. And and my husband said, look, if you're in a white water area, you're more likely to hit by waves. You just need to go beyond that. That's how we went little by little to going out and starting to catch waves. Well, not in the beginning, I didn't have any clue which waves to catch and nothing at all. Yeah.
And so how long was it before you started standing up? Because I love that you started and just, you weren't even trying to do that. You were just catching the waves and feeling the power of it and just like, wee, this is kind of fun. When did you start working on standing up?
Probably 12 months ago.
Wow. So you surfed a long time, just literally just floating on the belly and just riding the waves in.
Yeah.
There's something very pure in that, there's something very pure and very determined. You probably got good at getting back on the board too. Because no matter what you're doing, especially with the longer boards, you're going to purl, you're going to get rolled. And so how are you now? What's your comfort level you've been taking swimming classes for 12 months. What's your comfort level when you get rolled?
I'm okay if I'm rolled. That's just a part of surf, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it certainly is. So you mentioned that surfing did actually have a major kind of emotional transformation in your life. I'm going to let you tell that story because how you wrapped it up was really interesting to me. Like what the effect was on you.
Yeah, it was something I didn't expect on that day as well. At the time, I was having problems with my husband, and also my stepson was living with us. As a blended family, we just had a lot of family issues, and I blamed on them a lot. I thought about leaving relationship as well because I just didn't know what to do. At the time, I was going going into the ocean every morning. It was cold during the winter months.
Yeah.
And one morning it was just such a beautiful sunny morning, and ocean was just divine, was shining everywhere. And going to the wide, just about to be paddling out, this overwhelming gratitude came to me. Just I loved just being out there. And also I realized that I do need to start taking responsibility of my own life. I can't stay a victim forever. Whatever's happening, however I respond to it, that's me. I have a power to do so, and I have a choice. That was a wonderful realization that morning. And since then, things have changed a lot for me with relationship with my husband, my stepson, and my life as well.
That's amazing. I think you had said you had capped it up that you went from victim to adult. And, and I love that summary. And that is, we're never too old for that, right?
No, absolutely not. Yes.
I mean, how powerful. Yeah. That's a really incredible story. There's so much to unpack there, from the gratitude, from what you had put into the surfing to get you to that place, from all those choices you had made leading up to that place. And that's really profound and beautiful that it has affected your personal relationships in that way. And so has it changed if you and your husband surf together? Has that changed? That dynamic changed?
Absolutely. He is very protective of me in the water because he's seen me from day one.
Yeah.
And also he does encourages me to try all different things. I think that's he is learning that Junko is not a toddler in the surf anymore.
Good job. Oh, that's so cute.
With the mutual respect, and he surfed all his life, so he knows what's going on. And also I do listen to him as well in the water. Certain things I just think, I don't know what he's talking about. But however, we created a relationship that's something we both enjoy together.
That's really beautiful. It doesn't, because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work well with people that are very different levels. So I give you both credit for allowing each other to both be, who you are in it. And are there any special tidbits he's told you that were really valuable coming from a lifelong waterman?
Oh yeah. He said to me, when I'm wiped out, just keep calm. It's like you're asleep, and then you will come up, a few seconds. When if you panic, that makes more dangerous for you. That's he said from day one. Just keep calm. It's okay.
Do you ever use your meditation techniques if you get held under any longer, or if you have time to go into that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be okay. The acceptance that from meditation, I've learned from, what I have learned from meditation, the biggest thing is acceptance and gratitude. So if I'm wiped up, it's okay. I'll come up. So no need to panic. It's going to be okay.
Do you use any of those tools? Because some of the hardest parts about surfing sometimes are more mental in all kinds of ways, whether other people are catching waves and you're not, or you can't catch a wave, or you can't read the wave, or you finally get a wave and you fall off. Do you have any techniques other than just your own whole self? Is there anything you actively use when you're having a frustrating session?
Well, first of all, I stopped comparing myself with other people. It's my own self. Like meditation itself as well. When you go and meditate, it's my own meditation. So you just take it as it is. You don't compare with other people's meditation or judge your own meditation. It's the same with myself. When I'm not having a good day, just one of those self. Same with meditation, right? Every self is different. Some days you have really great self, and we do expect to have the same, but that's not the way. Meditation is the same. I have this wonderful, peaceful meditation one day, and next day I can't stop my thoughts.
That's a great metaphor. I love it. Or that's a great parallel, I should say. And I love the idea of not comparing yourself. And that's a practice, to not compare yourself. I used to have a thing I would say, nobody's watching and nobody cares. Which is completely untrue, because people actually are watching, but they're mostly, and I've said this before in the podcast, but they're mostly assessing whether or not, you know, how you are in the surf, to find out. They're really not judging you. They don't really care how you surf. It's like, okay, if this person paddles for a wave, are they going to miss it? Are they going to make it? So there is always this kind of sense of awareness, but it was still a helpful mantra for me when I was, and also there are certain breaks where I surf where people are on the beach watching, and they'll say afterwards, like, oh, nice wave or whatever. So they were watching. But just that idea, they're not watching for the reasons you think they're watching. They just want to surf better themselves. You know, that's really everybody is in their own place. But I like your approach even better, which is just, this is my own surf. You know, this is my own experience, and it's going to be different, just like every day in the ocean is different, and just like I'm different every day. But especially with meditation, because I'm sure so many people struggle with meditation. I mean, oh, yes, I have many layers of that as well. So it's nice to hear from somebody very practiced that you have days that, you know, just woo, the worlds go. So what has been your very best day surfing?
I had this recently when I was on holidays in Roti in Indonesia. Because, I caught this long wave, and I just thought, oh my God, this is just the best day. I really thought, it's the best day. I know this is going to be over the top comment, but I just felt, gee, I can understand how Gabriela Medina feels when he wins the competition.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. That's now, was it, are you goofy foot or regular?
Regular.
You're regular. So was it a right or a left, this beautiful wave?
That was right.
That's right. There's something about you know, when you're facing the wave and seeing it unfold in front of you, and time just stretches out, and you remember the color of the water.
Oh, yes. Wonderful. I just thought that was just the best part of my life.
Can you see it? Do you ever go to sleep and see that wave?
Oh, yeah, I can see that. I can feel it. I can almost touch it. Oh,
I
my
love
God,
it.
I can hear it. It's just wonderful. After I went through very difficult time with long COVID, and I wasn't, because I didn't have that strength to go for surf before I left Australia, and being able to do that there in Indonesia, it's wonderful.
So how long, you had mentioned that you had struggled with long COVID, and it kind of sounds like it happened right about the time you were starting to make a little progress with surfing. And so you then, this is such a hard thing for people that are surfers and have the surfing bug, when you get kept out of the water, just it's hard on your mental health, not to mention, you know, how long of that period was it, and how did you manage that? I think it reflects for anytime someone's, you know, put out of the water for a while.
I got COVID in January this year, and then after that, I had this fatigue, the exhaustion I had never ever felt before. It felt as if this black, heavy, this metal ball in my stomach when I was tired. It's just really not tired. That's exhaustion is the word. And I just couldn't go into the water. If I go in, it was such a hard chore for me to paddle.
Mm.
I really thought, what's wrong with me? What's happening with my body? And plus, I have menopause as well. The combination of long COVID and menopause, that's not the best
That's
combination, I can tell you that.
very unfair. Very
Yeah,
unfair. So
yes.
were you literally just beginning menopause or that was hitting you hard at the same time?
Yeah, hitting hard at the same time. Yeah. I started menopause mid last year. So
Okay.
probably,
And what were the
yeah.
things that happened to you physically through
Mhm.
that process? I love talking about menopause. Just I know it. My next guest, I'm
Yeah,
going to get
me
some
too.
30-year-olds on, I promise, ladies. But when I was growing up, nobody talked about it, and I was
Mm,
so afraid of it. So, and
yeah.
there's parts of it that have been okay, and parts that have not been very fun. So,
Mm,
what were what's been your experience going through that, especially in the middle of trying this whole new thing?
mm. Menopause, me, that's the tiredness. That's
Mm-hmm.
the one thing. Uh, more of fatigue. I get tired so quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and also mood swings.
Oh,
Um, yeah, anxiety came first, then
oh wow.
mood swings. Mm, I was, it really shocked me. I just thought, oh my God, what's happening with me? I, I just, I felt really anxious waking up like 2, 3 o'clock early in the morning. This, my heart pumping, anxious. I didn't know what to do with myself.
And did you know what was happening when that started?
I just thought I had a sort of vague idea, maybe something to do with menopause. So I
Mm-hmm.
went and spoken with doctor, and she said, "Oh, probably you need to be on hormone replacement patch." And I went, oh, no, 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 all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I went on with it, and it did help me. And also, medication has helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Did
Like
you have,
physically.
yeah,
Mhm.
no, go on, go on.
I was going to say, however, the physically the fatigue that has been the biggest challenge for me, and not only menopause plus COVID and long COVID, it's sort of starting to um, wear off today. However, I do still have fatigue hanging around. Perhaps that's to do with menopause.
Junko, that is a long time, January through, we're in
Mm.
November, for you to
Yeah.
just be coming out of that. That is a lot to manage.
Oh, yeah. It has been. It has been tough mentally. I looked for solutions everywhere, and well, I spend a lot of money on supplements as well. If that's going to help me,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
however, the end of
it's
mm,
trying, menopause itself is like a whole mystery. It's
mm,
some things work very well for some women and
mm.
other things don't work at all. And then long COVID is completely mysterious, so
Oh yeah.
you have a lot of smiling going on for all that, for all that you're walking through. And how is
Yeah,
surfing, how have you had to sort of alter your expectations in the surf, just knowing that you don't have the strength?
absolutely. I needed to do that. Um, I don't expect anything for me to perform. If it is good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. And also, when I when all this started, I used to sort of, talk really negatively about myself. Oh goodness, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? Why can't can it perform? Because I have always been fit all my life. It was a really hard thing to accept.
Right. You had mentioned when
It's
we chatted before that, yeah, you were a tennis player, you were very, very fit, you were very athletic.
mm,
So that part wasn't in and of it challenging, but this is, yeah, that combination and menopause. Did you have weight gain to deal with, or did your body change at all?
not that much. Still, I put on a couple of kilos. However,
Hmm.
other than that, I haven't really put very much weight. I do watch what I eat. I
Hmm.
eat very healthy,
Hmm.
and I'm not a big meat eater. I
Hmm.
do eat meat here and there, but it's probably to do with my Japanese background. I prefer fish
Hmm.
over meat and a lot of vegetables and fruits.
So when you were talking about having negative self-talk, did you have any of that around like when you went out to start surfing about your age, about your body shape, about being in a wetsuit or a bathing suit? Did you have any of that self-talk that affected your joy or your sense of freedom?
I think I would say yes. Just being very tired, and I didn't enjoy surfing a lot. Just
Hmm.
being tired, really,
Hmm.
really tired. And I remember saying to my husband, I don't want to be in the water anymore. I don't want to go because I'm tired. I
Yeah.
can't paddle.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And body image, I haven't, going to surf, I haven't really worried about how I look. It's more of a, I was always worried about being drowned. That
Yeah.
was the
Okay.
biggest thing.
Yeah. That'll take you right out of the other issues.
Yeah, I don't really want to die. I don't think that much today. My swimming instructor said to me, very good thing. Probably, he said it in a joking way, but I still took it on board.
Mhm.
When we were trying, when he said to me, "Oh, just sit on the bottom of the pool," and I wasn't able to sort of do that. I would just float up all the time. And he said to me, "It's a good thing, Junko. You won't drown because you can't go down."
That's really funny. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So I do remember that. It's a good something good for me to remember.
So I've
Mm,
seen a couple of posts from you.
mm,
One of them, and also I'm going to sort of ask you these questions together. So one of
mm.
them was a just general shark question, like, how are
Yeah,
you managing that? And then another was an injury. You got a pretty good slice, across your eye. These are
yeah,
obviously, the biggest perils in surfing,
mm,
unless
yeah,
there's an extremely tragic head trauma or something like that. So I'm
yeah.
curious, just generally, what is the situation with sharks, and where do you surf? What part of Australia? Yeah.
I surf Avoca. I often go to Avoca Beach. That's the closest beach from us on the central coast in New South Wales in Australia. Avoca Beach recently had shark attack, but sharks live in the water. We go into their habitat.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Having said that, it is scary when incidents happen. Until very recently, as I have mentioned quite a few times, that I worried about drowning other than anything
Right.
else.
Okay.
But
Oh, that's why that
sharks,
fear, that was why that fear suddenly emerged. You probably got past drowning. And, now you're like, oh, wait a minute. There are a few other things. All of us have different ways
yeah,
of managing because, yeah, we're in their habitat. We know for sure it's never
mm,
intentional that that
mm,
something happens. But I didn't know, is there
yeah.
any, like, what's the general feeling around surfers? Do you not talk about it in the water? Is there superstition, or do people feel pretty confident, or is there a heightened sense? It might be the same in all breaks. I'm just curious.
Mm. Well, to be honest, I haven't really spoken with other surfers in the water. I have spoken with my husband about it too. He wasn't really worried about sharks in the past. He used to go to twilight surfing, which I hated him doing that because that's the time sharks can come. And yeah, that man agreed to buy shark bans with me, and we bought that. So that's, I always said, that's peace of mind.
Right.
Yeah. My husband said other people are talking about buying shark bones. I said, oh, okay. So there are a bit of concerns around
Right.
it as well. Mm.
That sounds about similar. That sounds about
Mm.
similar. Now, I'll tell you, my daughter goes to
Mm.
a project-based charter school here, and they study sharks. They actually have
Mm.
some small sharks on campus, and they did a
Yeah.
shark bands experiment. And this is the what they found is that the shark band does initially attract the shark, but then it repels
Uh-huh.
them. so so it's like they're like,
Oh
oh, what's
God.
that? So they might come a little closer, and then they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. But we've had
Oh
a lot of
dear.
discussions about that. But I think there's a lot of data saying they're overall
Mm.
effective. But it was an interesting experiment they did. She went and swam with like 30
Mm.
Galapagos sharks over on
Oh
Oahu,
wow.
and yeah, it's
Mm.
pretty interesting. And I've learned a lot about them from her. She gives me the
Yeah.
reports, and like anywhere, we do have
Mm.
occasional attacks, and it's
Mm.
then you sit and you analyze it all. What time of day was it? How clear was the
Mm.
water? What was happening? What
Mm.
kind? But it is just, yeah, something we all, when I get a feeling, and there's one place I surf where I just get a feeling sometimes, and I know they live out there, but my
Mm.
my decision is when I get a feeling. We're animals, so we have feelings, right? I just take,
Yeah.
I respond to them. I figure it's disrespectful to not respond. If I feel a major predator, I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to give this predator its space because I don't really need to be in there if I'm feeling that energy. And I'll never know. Well, one time recently, I was definitely right. I had gone out before dawn, and I had paddled out to
Mm.
this one spot, and it was so beautiful. And the sun
Mm.
was, the water was all pink. And I went out to one of my favorite spots, and I
Mm.
was totally by myself. But the waves, it wasn't really big, but the way it was hitting, there was a lot of white water. There was just a lot of lack of
Mm.
clarity. And then I just got
Yeah.
this really strong feeling. And I was literally
Mm.
the only one on the whole beach. And I was like, I think I'll just go into the shore. And I paddled down and
Ah.
then waited for some other people to come, and then went out, sort of to a peak a little bit past that. And then one of my
Yeah.
friends who has actually been on this podcast and had been attacked by a shark and has,
Oh
great
wow.
respect for them, but not really fear. But she's like, oh, yeah, I saw a fin go by a little while ago. And I was like, okay, I think I might have been right about that one. But yeah, it's a way, we all find our way through it. And it sounds like where you are, it's just the same as, the rest of us out there. And now what
Yeah.
about, I love the picture of you. And I saw your post
Mm.
recently where, you have this black eye and people are asking, and you had a really beautiful post about this as people are asking, is everything okay at home?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you're talking about, let's not make this taboo. Like, we have
Mm.
that whole thing, but
Mm.
I'm curious. Yeah. What are the questions you've been getting? Have you had to field those kinds of questions for where you got this black eye?
Yeah. Initially people asked me, what have you done to your eye? Or are you okay? And coming to, is everything okay at home? And
Yeah.
I said, yeah, everything is okay at home, except that I did have an issue with surfboard.
Yeah. And I love that your attitude, I think, we all have different
Um,
reactions, but I tend to get mostly emboldened after or more determined. But I have had
mm,
times. I had a recent injury where a longboarder, really excellent surfer, was completely
mm,
just an accident. And nobody
mm,
can see my hands, but he was coming down the line on
mm,
this. There's like 4 peaks at this break. And he's on like a
mm,
10-foot board with a 10-foot leash. And he was actually
mm,
getting barreled. Very few people can do that here, but he was doing it. And so he was going so fast. And I saw him coming, and I was
ah,
on my shortboard, and I duck dove, and only my right leg was sticking out. Well, he fell, and his 10-foot board shot out at this high speed with the 10-foot leash. So
ah,
ricocheted 20 feet and slammed into my femur. And
oh,
I still have
wow.
a dent that's solid 2 inches. It just broke all the muscle in there, but I thought my
Oh,
femur was shattered. I didn't think I could walk, but it turns
mm,
out the bone was okay. And it did take quite a long
yeah.
time to heal. But I got a little shell shocked from that one. Like that I stayed away
Mm,
from people a lot since then. I just,
yeah.
it take me about 6 months. So have you had a
Mm.
chance to discover if you have any reverberation, or are you at peace and you're just moving along?
This time I'm moving on. I'm okay. I went since I had this accident with a surfboard. Well, I should say center fin. I went back into the water. Yeah. My husband was very upset, but I was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just,
It's
yeah, those things happen, and I was very lucky that it wasn't my eye.
mhm.
Doctor told me so as well.
That's okay.
It's
Well, good.
yeah, it is. It's going well.
So have you been back to Japan to surf? Have you surfed in Japan?
No, I haven't. I hope to do that. We're planning to go to Japan next year, and it depends on the season as well, I guess. Yeah, I would love to have an experience of surfing in Japan too.
Are your parents still here? Are they still alive?
Yes, they are
And
still
so what do
around.
they think of you? What are they going to think of you going out? You need to wear your pink bikini. And
Ah, ah,
what do they
I
think
don't
of?
have that anymore.
What do they think of Junko the surfer?
Oh my God, I don't think they can comprehend. This Christmas, well, my husband and I normally organize a calendar with our pictures and the one page that's photo of me surfing. So it's going to be interesting what they say about it.
Oh, I can't wait. You have to post it in the group. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
will.
So I feel like you really are an expert. You answered it just in a sense, just this, you have this natural curiosity about things. But, you
Yeah.
know, wrapping up, I
Yeah.
want to leave with what could you say to women who, what is a tip for overcoming, the fear of something unknown in this way? Do you have any tips?
I say that well, quite often people say that. I thought that to myself. Fear isn't a bad thing.
Mhm, right?
Yeah, because fear is there to protect us in certain way. I still have a fear going to the water, not as much as I used to have, because that keeps me safe. And I don't go into water when it is really big.
Mhm.
If I didn't have any fear left, probably I would go in.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, overcoming fear, that's something, you know, you just give it a go.
Maybe a
That's
better
I would say.
question is like, in a way, overcoming judgment, because this is something you've
Mm,
done over and over again. Like, what some
mm,
self talk people could do if it's not coming naturally to them,
mm,
if they're afraid what their parents will think, what their spouse will think, what
mm,
their community will
mm,
think. And yet there's some part of themselves they really want to explore. Is there
mm,
any little nudge that you would know how to advise?
mm. Well, what I have done is it's my life, so I do
Mm,
what I want to enjoy. And also that it's maybe I'm going a little bit sideways. That's I have been sort of, giving negative talk about not having strength and so on. I started saying to myself, "You're doing great. My body's doing really great. I'm just doing whatever I can do."
I love that.
So so it's be your best cheerleader. That's I would say.
Woo.
I have been yes, I'm not the most talented person in the water, but I just said, gosh, you're so talented. Look at the way you got the waves earlier. That's I said to myself.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap on your story. And Junko, thank you so much for being a part of this and for supporting yourself and for inspiring women around you and all the great work that you do.
Oh, thank you very much, Sheila, for having me here. It's been really great.